So we're going to be talking about really how to cross that bridge that's perceived to be one of the hardest in the manufacturing environment of how to take that information digital, specifically around work instructions and really bringing the operator to the process instead of having the process documented that they review randomly, really start to build that culture of quality and bring that into the digital realm where we have all that information to help manufacturing do those continuous improvement activities and really drive quality at the source. And of course, today we're going to talk about all the benefits of taking those manufacturing processes digital.
So you're talking about SOPs and work instructions?
Yes.
So asking for a friend, what does SOP stand for?
SOP, something procedure.
All right, let's
Yes.
go with that. So my name is Katie Farley, and I am a product manager at Master Control. I worked in a variety of industries before coming to Master Control about 5 years ago, and I currently work on the manufacturing solution. I work directly with our customers, understanding their problems and processes, and also directly with the engineering teams that are actually developing the product.
Yes. And I really appreciate Katie coming on today because she's had direct implementation experience taking manufacturing live, and we're going to look into some of those today. And of course, it's me again. I have a lengthy background in manufacturing, digitizing processes, and several years in development and digitizing multinational global companies' ability to ship products around the world. And so today we're going to start talking about those challenges, specifically with taking those manufacturing work instructions and SOPs and really how to take them into a digital realm. And we're not just talking about taking paper documents into a document management system. We're talking about how do you digitize that manufacturing process where the operator has the right information at the right time at their fingertips to do that standard operation.
Yep, that's right. And when we're talking about adjusting to digital, taking a paper process and bringing it into a digital system, you might think of just copying and pasting a document from wherever it's sitting today, whether it's in a desktop or in a Word document, and just putting it in a digital system. But if you take that one-to-one approach, you're really going to miss out on some of the advantages that can come with this process, because this is really an opportunity to sit down and think about and understand what are the processes that are happening on the manufacturing floor. Where is this information being consumed, and by who, and why at this specific location and point in time. So this can really result in a new way of thinking, and this will result in you being able to capitalize on some of the advantages of a digital system. And it can really be a company-wide change because you want to make sure that you have all the different parties that are involved in the process.
So back to your question, standard operating procedure.
That's what it is.
Yes. Back when I've done these transitions with companies, hundreds of times I've heard an employee say, well, that's not how we do it. And audit findings, you can go through audit findings and find that as well. That old mentality of taking a document and just putting it in to the digital system and they have to train on it, that's not what we're talking about here, right?
Exactly.
We're actually talking about taking that information to the operator and having that cycle of continuous improvement where if the operation is producing quality but the documentation isn't up to speed, that it self-naturally cycles and keeps us in that continuously validated state of quality. And it also breeds that culture of quality. Now, of course, when you're talking about digitizing an environment like that, lots of questions come up. IT support, how do we make sure that we can cross this bridge? What's the cost to do so? And how do we keep that up to date, right? Back to configurable systems versus customizable systems, right? Making sure that when you're looking to move digital in the manufacturing environment, it is people-centric as far as the ability to adapt and grow with those changes. We just talked with Kim Jackson about CAPA management and complaints and different quality events management. Manufacturing is the key to embed those changes through the digital process. So if you have that information flowing and being connected, it all works better. And the management of the system actually goes down because now you're not trying to manage all the disparate paper products, all the products stored in Iron Mountain and other elements that are siloed and not connected systems. back to the IT support, cloud is the way to go, right? Those homegrown systems that sit on top of legacy systems are expensive, hard to maintain, and you can't connect the information to other systems. So if you focus on a cloud-based approach, you can really minimize that IT issue, especially with companies like AWS and their FedRAMP, sites. I mean, there's all kinds of security levels in these cloud systems now that are very, very secure.
Okay, so moving on to some of the benefits of going digital and why it is worth the time and effort to move from a paper-based SOP and work instruction document system to a digital one. So when we're talking about a paper system where you have tens, hundreds, maybe even thousands of pages of paper throughout offices, binders, the manufacturing floor, traceability is really a very difficult concept at that point. But this is something that's really inherent and easy for a digital system. Once you have these documents, SOPs in a digital system, that traceability is going to come very easily. So we have some advantages like always knowing that the correct revision is the one that's being referenced. If you make a change to a process and you need that to be reflected in a document, as soon as that change is approved, that can be immediately available to the consumers of that, or not. If it should be delayed for a few product runs or delayed for a few days, all of this is configurable and possible in a digital system. One example within the master control system, if you have documents, SOPs, work instructions that might be linked within a master batch record, those links can actually be dynamic. So you will always know that the operator is going to be linking to the correct document, the latest released revision, until they've actually used it and entered data into that step, at which point it's become static. So there you have the traceability of knowing what was the document that was referenced during that specific point in the manufacturing process.
Yeah, and you speak about those keeping manufacturing up to date. I know many environments, whether it's injection molding, machine shop, even assembly, even with a digital QMS system, which we've talked about previously, you still end up with a paper document that has to be manually controlled out in production, and you can actually have a new revision that didn't ricochet down through the different systems. Relying on those human steps to deliver that information, if your entire system isn't digital, then you lose those points. You become siloed at those different disparate systems, causing some of these audit findings and issues with different FDA inspections and even recalls and other points where you have to mitigate something that's happened. And of course, in today's environment, dealing with COVID, all these workers going remote, I know that for the master control solution, we've had lots of clients talk about the ability of their QA departments have to work from home.
That's right. Yeah.
It's an insane ability that COVID has just kind of heightened it.
Right.
And the irony is QC has the same capability. We're working with companies now using remote technologies to do quality control inspections. So your quality control inspector that is traveling between different lines, right, inspecting different elements. Imagine the world where you can do that remote in a digital cloud environment and have the controls like you do in a digital QA system.
Yeah, definitely. There are a lot of situations today that lend itself to successful remote working, and I would say paper SOPs and work instructions are definitely a detriment.
Yes, those are, you can put them in the FedEx and
That's
mail
right.
them out.
Yeah,
Yes,
weeks
yes.
later.
Well, I did what a lot of people have done recently, and I refinanced my house because interest rates are insanely low. It was an awesome process. Everything was digital up until the final step. They came to my house, did the stamps on all my signatures, and then there was the FedEx envelope. Right, that's a great example of digital up to a point, and you still actually lose the benefits if you don't have that whole system digital front to end, right? And the speed element, right? Obviously being able to react quickly is imperative in manufacturing, and having all that digital information across those systems allows you, like you're saying, to react to changes, to issues that have been mitigated through different process changes, procedure changes, work instruction changes. The ability to have that and see deviations, know exactly. I mean, I work with companies that have the deviations that carry for several months. We have to use a different material for a period of time. We have to do some people call them planned deviations. The irony there is how often that gets skipped over, or forgotten, or we didn't collect these two different elements that were changing. Having all that digital allows the speed not just to build faster, but to actually release product faster. Because now you're not having a product built incorrectly, not to a red line or deviation, and having to go back after the fact. Slows down your release process, slows down your QC process, right? So speed really is an essence, especially again in the COVID, where now we're looking at companies tightening their belts, companies looking for cost savings. How do we reduce these overhead expenses? And QA and QC are overhead expenses, right? So how can we help streamline those costs and bring better value to the company through live time data and information?
Okay, so speaking of live time information, this is now available to look at where an employee is working, where are they consuming this information, where is it relevant to them based on what they're actually doing during the manufacturing process at that time. And this is happening in real time. And everything that's connected with these documents, such as the training requirements that are associated with them, that can become a part of the process day in and day out, not a paper that's reviewed every 6 months or once a year when your training comes up. So we're really looking at more up-to-date information, employees that you know are trained, along with the traceability aspect when we're talking about data and proof that the process was actually followed.
Right. So you're saying that humans can make mistakes?
I think so. I think that's what I'm saying.
I'm perfect. As long as I'm isolated in a room with nothing happening, I can't do anything wrong. Yes, and to that key, it's so easy for us to look at human errors when really what we should be looking at is the process errors and what's coming out of it. We shouldn't be looking for cross T's and dotted I's and correct dates. I mean, those in an automated world, in an automated system, all of those issues go away, where we can actually focus on the controls and focus on what we really need to be focusing on, which is producing a quality product that meets efficacy requirements and is safe to ship out to our clients. So now, that's great. Those benefits are all good. You know, when we started, we talked about this is a hard area to do it, right? It is definitely perceived as a hard area to automate, right? Manufacturing it has a ton of different data points. There's all kinds of equipment out there. So how do we actually do it? How do we take that manufacturing information to a digital state, right? How do we get there?
Yeah. And there's some extra elements now that will be available to you when we're talking about a digital system that you may not have thought of when you were limited by paper. So these are things like the ability to embed videos. How much more valuable is it if an operator can actually see a video of what they're supposed to be doing, as opposed to having to track down a binder that may have black and white pictures in it? So the ability to enable things like videos is going to be a huge improvement. We can also look at really high quality images. Those are going to be easier to read and consume if you are looking at a screen as opposed to a piece of paper. You can also emphasize different sections and just format it in a way that really makes sense to consume, and you can do that very easily. You can also do things like link to other records that might be relevant with just the click of a button.
Right, exactly. And it's these newer systems, right? It's manufacturing years ago, you were locked into how do we collect the information automatically? How do we hook up to the equipment? When really most of the information can now be done through visual recognition and different types of autonomous collection that's assisting the humans on the line, not necessarily replacing them. One of the elements we had, and a quick little story, I was working with a client who wanted to be able to capture scale information automatically, because their operators were, they thought maybe fudging the information or writing it down incorrectly, to move things along. And they were looking at automating and collecting information from all these different scales. Well, they're looking at it going, oh my gosh, I got to upgrade and get them all on the same PLCs, so I have the same type of connection, so I'm getting all the information. And what we ended up doing is we said, no, here's a $20 camera. We can put it behind it a real cheap, visual recognition system that every time the operator pushes the button, the camera actually reads the numbers and feeds it into the system. It doesn't matter the age of the scale, doesn't matter the PLC. It can be a $5 scale off Amazon now that we have the camera fixated on it. So there's all kinds of lower cost, easy to implement ways out in the world today where you can collect that information that isn't what it used to be 10 or 15 years ago. And the key there, like you were saying, is configurability. Focus heavily on configuring a configurable system, not a customizable system. Once you're locked into a customized system, change is expensive. How do you change, right? And so configurable
implementation takes a very long time.
Exactly. So if you're focused on a system that is in a continually validated state with a configurable base to it, it's now a win-win, right? And so again, back to that interconnected systems, right? How do we connect all this information? And in today's world, again, it used to be, oh, I've got to create this piece of middleware and connect these two systems. You know, there's all kinds of new technology out there that is much lower cost to connect these systems. You know, iPaaS systems, they've only been around a few years and they're much lower cost, and a lot of times they have out-of-the-box connection points and endpoints for major systems. And as these iPaaSes grow and collect more and more information, more and more of these connection points are being made. So over time, these iPaaS systems are going to become more and more efficient at delivering low-cost solutions. Now, of course, I'm not going to name too many of them here that we're dealing with, but we've dealt with 3 or 4 of them, and they're amazing solutions, and they can help connect those systems so that you don't have that siloed effect. Okay, so gone through a lot of information again today. Just want to remind y'all, we're not in this alone. We have all kinds of help here, both at Master Control as well as our partner groups listed here. And anytime you can reach out to us and talk about how to really take that manufacturing element to that digital environment where you have all of those benefits from being digital.
So digitizing is more than paper on glass, meaning, as I was mentioning earlier, it's not just an opportunity to take your paper and put the exact same thing in a digital system. It's really an opportunity to embrace new processes, a new mindset, and understand where the information is coming from and how that makes sense in a digital system. As we've worked with different customers throughout the implementation of Master Control, for example, we've seen the customers that take that mindset of really taking a step back, understanding, putting in the time with the right stakeholders to do this are the ones that have seen the most success.
Yeah, and they see a great success. Like the benefits outweigh the cost of this by and large, right? Just being able to have that confidence that your product meets the efficacy needs as well as safety and be able to ship it with confidence, right? So thank you so much, Katie. I appreciate you joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, we will be right back to talk about, more specifically, batch records going electronic.
I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thank you.